All right, I'm back here to talk about the real thing that's blocking you from whatever you want, really. And I uh, have been deviated uh, from the intention, my earlier intention to make this a daily thing. And, well, that's just the reason why I haven't been doing this every day is actually exactly the thing that I wanted to talk about in this video. Because, well, just to get to the point, and it will take a whole video, however long this video will end up being, to illustrate that point, uh, to give it the time and the depth it deserves, does the subject deserves. Okay. And the block is an emotional one. Surprise, surprise. This may be news for some of you. Um, and for others, hmm, especially if you've been in this game of self-development, that's one way to put it, or even spiritual inner work. So you may have, some of you may have at least some level of an intellectual understanding of the concept of emotional blockage. But I've had some things happen today that gave me a lot more clarity about this whole subject. And I felt I was more ready to share this, to come, to let this message come through me. And that urge became stronger than whatever was holding me back before. And I keep saying whatever, but I can be a lot more specific about what's been holding me back. And it, in a single phrase, it's just imposter syndrome, meaning I knew what I had to say had great importance, a lot of gravity. And at the same time, looking back, why I was holding back from it was my insecurity around me being a worthwhile conduit for the message. So, self worth issues. And whatever you're feeling, or I'm trying to find the right way to describe this. The reason why the nature of the blockage, the obstacle between that's standing between you now, the now version of you, and whatever you want. This is categorical. The reason why the obstacle is emotional can be explained using the example of an imposter syndrome, to use my story. So think about something that you've been wanting for some while that's been hard to create, manifest, bring into your current reality. And observe the response that's coming up from within. It's very likely the first thing is an emotion, a feeling of sorts. Even before your mind can think a thought about it, it's most likely a visceral response, like a some kind of in many cases, in most cases, I imagine it would be like a knot, internal knot of something not being resolved. And if you can resolve, untie that knot, chances are that's about the only thing that's blocking the thing you've been desiring from coming into your reality. I just realized there's a lot more explanation explaining to do. So let's continue. Why do I say this? Well, because other people, especially the people who talk about manifestation or law of attraction, they will tend to emphasize the power of your mind a lot. Think the right thoughts. And even in the manifestation circle, one prominent figure, if, if you've heard of him, Neville Goddard, talks about how the feeling is the secret. But Neville Goddard is not the only person who talks about the importance of actually feeling like your desire already achieved. And I tend to agree with that. But the disconnect I've been seeing is where they say feeling is something you can conjure at will. I've tried that and it doesn't work. And feeling slash emotion is a much more potent, powerful, and primal source of creation than your thought is, slash what your left brain logical mind, some may call it ego mind. And as I showed you earlier, the most primal immediate response when we think about a subject is not a mental one and not an intellectual one, it's an emotional one. Especially if it's something that has become important to you, mostly because it hasn't been resolving itself for a time. And that is the emotional slash spiritual. Going forward, I would be using those two words, emotional and spiritual, more and more interchangeably, and you will you'll learn why that is so. The emotion is important in any attempt to create your reality or manifest something or attract something into your life. Is because well, emotion is really the human interface to the fabric of the reality. Okay. I don't know if I'm doing a good job of trying to explain the deeper mm, nuances of how reality actually works. But bear with me, um, because you know the how my how my mechanism works is it takes time to get to where we need to go, but in the end, we always get there somehow, however long it takes. We want something. We all want something fundamentally because we want to get to an emotional place. In other words, to put it more simply, we only want something because we want to feel a certain way. The only reason you want anything is because you want to feel something. And when they say in the manifestation circles that feeling is a secret, is they mean you need to get to that emotional place first before you can see the end result of whatever you believed will bring that emotional status, that emotional state to you, okay? So, meaning, for example, let's say I want to become mm, a doctor, okay? That will become an actual example in later videos, but uh, not a hypothetical one, that is. But for some people who want to become a doctor, they may be in it for different reasons. For example, for prestige, for financial reasons to become rich, or purely um, altruistic reasons. But regardless of those specifics, when you dig deeper, uh, it's all because of the feeling state that you believe or that person believes having prestige or being financially rich or being an altruistic person will bring you. And the question is, why don't you feel that way now? And why do you need that thing to feel that way? Or why do you believe you need that thing to feel this way? It may sound like an intellectual question, and in some ways it is, but at the same time, it's really more of a soul searching question than an intellectual one. And the reason why I'm taking a lot of seeming pauses in between some of my phrases and sentences is because I am speaking from my heart. And this is not just an intellectual conversation, it's a very emotional one for me as well. And one of the characteristics of emotions is it takes time to process. This is not an easy thing to be talking about because we are talking about your whole life and the nature of our existence, really. This is not a trivial matter. And when you clicked on this video, and if you're watching this far, you believed I'll be giving you some kind of an answer, and I will. Some kind of an answer will come through me, but I just have to trust myself, have to trust that the right thing will be transferred to you, even in a sense, independently of how I'm trying to verbalize it. Because I just had that kind of an experience when watching some other YouTube video, listening to some rabbi. I'm not. I mean, as you can see, I'm just I'm Asian, and you know, clearly not Jewish by blood. And I got a lot of transmission from listening to him, not necessarily deciphering his words. I mean, I was being downloaded. That's the best way to describe it. A deeper meaning behind what he was talking about, and in this case, abundance. And that's why I knew I had to turn on the camera and start talking about this because I wasn't sure about my ability to really just explain. I was about to say describe, but I chose the word explain because explain, to me at least, the way I understand it, has to do with the words and more intellectual, left brain, logical kind of processing. But describing is more about not just the logic of it, but painting a picture with words so that you, whoever you are watching this, will get much more out of what I'm just what I'm saying compared to if I were just using my intellect and trying to make a perfect logical flow of things. And I used to do that. I used to be very good at that. But I wasn't feeling very fulfilled creating messages like that. And I think I've mentioned in my first video that I actually uh, managed to shoot a video that gained 1 million views, and that was very mm, well constructed in terms of a logical flow. But I knew somehow deep down that my messages were meant to be much more than that. I see a lot of intellectuals out there who make a lot of sense, who can make an airtight argument about their point of view. And I subscribe to a lot of those people, and not just in these kind of a more esoteric area, but also business, self development. I used to be, I mean, I still am a very practical guy, and I believe everything has to be effective if it's gonna be worthwhile. So I'm really glad that we're having a heart to heart conversation, and trust me, this will pay a much bigger dividend to you having coming closer to your dream life, having more of what you want compared to having less, or having more unrealized dreams, which is the subject of this very video. So, why aren't you in that feeling space already that you believe achieving that thing, getting that thing, will bring you? This may be one of the most important questions that you will ever ask yourself. Because the trouble about most unrealized dreams, I believe, is twofold. Number one, it's not your dream in the first place. You just inherited someone else's dream. And that's why you can muster up the willpower required to continue to chase that. And willpower is somewhat overrated, because willpower is what is required to make you do something you don't want to do in the moment. And I used to follow somewhat well known influencer, kind of an old man, who very successful financially, um, who built his whole thing around this whole concept. And I'm quoting him saying, I'm going to, I'm the person who's going to make you do the thing that you know you have to do in order to succeed, but you can't get yourself to do it. And it sounded good on paper, but more and more I observed him, and I even tried to follow his methods, but it just didn't resonate, and I couldn't continue on following him. And the more I observed him, it just felt like, he was inflicting child abuse on adults who came there to his seminars, a very pricey one. And why do you believe, or why is almost everyone saying that you need to go against your grain, really, to get to where you want to go. I mean, isn't there something weird about this picture? Why do you have to force yourself to get to where you want to go? Because I truly believe that what is truly yours comes in a complete package, meaning not only the getting of the end destination will make you feel good, even great, but also the journey to be there will be enjoyable. Okay, so if we are made to believe that the end goal is desirable, but not the journey, not the process to get there, why? Why is that such a prevalent line of thinking? Well, I can tell you straight up why that is so, because that's how we have been manipulated over millennia. Being told that something is a worthwhile goal, or being having been brainwashed that this is your goal when it's really not, because there is not an alignment, not a complete alignment. That is how others in power manipulated the masses to do the bidding, to do their bidding. Okay, to chase an external goal that is not theirs, not your own. Not only is emotions the most powerful driver of human actions, but also it is the most powerful teacher and a potential source of awareness. Meaning, in many ways, feelings are closely related to experiences, human experiences. So when we think of an experience, it will, in many cases, especially if it's a memory that we can revisit later on, how human memory works is uh, the stronger the emotional association to the memory, the longer and stronger the memory will be. So you will tend to remember um, events that gave you a strong emotional reaction, even though it was a long time ago. For example, uh, a much used example is, can you remember where you were and what you were doing when you first found out about the 911 events? And at the time of the shooting of this video, it was 24 years ago, and I still remember where I was. Well, I was still living in Korea, and it was nighttime. I got back home from study Hagwon, the Korean thing, uh, private institution. Anyways, and my parents were watching news, and it was unbelievable. And other than that one event, just watching it on the news, it was a pretty average day and a I would say forgettable day for me. But that night, I remember what I was doing, where I was, although that was just a part of the routine for me, coming back at night on weekdays after studying. So, just how I used the 911 as an example, emotions will leave you deeper marks, if you will, in your psyche. And we tend to learn a lot better from experiences. I mean, we can't, wise people say, experience is best teacher. And you can't, it's really difficult to convince someone against their own experience. And chances are, this video is getting longer. The reason why you want something is because of an emotional experience. Going back, I said uh, the reason why we tend to chase after a goal that is not really ours was twofold. And I think we somehow naturally got into the second part, which is we tend to want something because of an emotional event, and we got this far. I can't sugarcoat things anymore. It's really, in many cases, an emotional trauma, not just any experience. An emotional trauma that left a hole in your psyche. In some traditional Aboriginal cultures throughout the world, um, even some spiritual traditions, some make some call it a soul fracture, meaning because of a difficult emotional event, you had to let go a part of your soul, and a part of soul leaves your body as a safety mechanism, self-preservation. And because of that, you don't feel complete because literally a part of you just left as a result of that emotional event. And what you're really after is not something external. Well, if we say that soul fragment piece that left you is now external to you, well, we can say that is external. But what I'm saying is, what you're after is really a piece of you. You want a piece of you back. But how so many of these emotional traumas work is they happen earlier in our lives, pre-adult years mostly. We don't have the wherewithal, the maturity, the know-how of how to handle that emotional trauma. And therefore, the pursuit becomes misdirected. A false association happens. What you're after is really a piece of you. You just want to be whole again. But what you believe that will make you whole again, that's where the misdirection or misassociation happens. So, to go back to the title of this video, the blockage between you and whatever you want, especially if it's been difficult to bring it about, is an emotional one. I mean, if it's if getting it was a purely logical endeavor, you would have gotten it already. I mean, we're pretty smart beings. And so untying the knot, when you think about that unfulfilled desire, is actually, in my opinion at least, how to get it. And you don't have to believe any of what I said. I mean, I just talked about how we get brainwashed by others who want you to do their bidding. But the only thing I can count on is you your deeper awareness, your deeper understanding that knows something, knows your own truth when you hear it, even when it comes from an external source. And I just got reminded of how important that is, because even if like the verbal content may not be may not register to your logical brain, I just experienced how a lot can be transferred. So, meaning, even if whatever I said through the last 38 minutes makes no sense, you can get a lot out of this video. So, the reason why I knew this was an important message that had to come through, I think excessive chasing has become a disease. And in my opinion at least, all the law of attraction or manifestation content out there isn't helping at all. Especially based on the understanding that what you're really after is a piece of yourself and not something external. And please don't misunderstand. I'm not saying you'll be happy with nothing. I mean, it can happen if you uh, really become emotionally fulfilled, but at the same time, it gets old after a while because certain things that you desire is actually for you. You're meant to have it. So not all of the desires that's not been um, coming true is others or coming from your emotional trauma. there are your true desires, the third kind. But uh, the sad thing is, for most people, that is a small minority of, when we're talking about the percentage of how much that makes up of what they want. Your desire is a sacred thing. It's not something to be manipulated or to be used as a self-soothing mechanism, although uh, it may serve a purpose until a certain point. But really, I realize how much damage these misdirected, dare I say, false desires have been inflicting on so many people's psyche. For those who are ready, I want to help you see that. I mean, there's even the saying, be careful what you wish for, you may get it. And we have heard so many stories where someone worked so hard, even gave their life to get something. And when they finally got there, it wasn't satisfying to them. And what a tragedy. And that's for a large part the basis of the exploitation and manipulation that I talked about. How those in power hijacked the sacred power of your desire to work, in many cases, against yourself and to serve their own selfish agenda. Not an easy subject, I know, but I had to say it. I had to do this. Uh, I really, it may sound ironic, but I really enjoyed uh, relaying this message. I now have a better understanding of what my videos will be about, and hopefully, I will finally turn this into a daily thing. But who knows? Um, the message has its own. I need to uh, follow the integrity of the message. Okay, how it may come through daily or not, it's not really up to me. But God willing, it will be more frequent if it's really worthwhile and useful for many of you. All right, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.